following gameplay that you just witnessed, or at least a couple of seconds with it, is indeed as real as the air that we are currently breathing. So yeah, there's a fish with a gun. Do I even have to explain any more of this? Let's just get to the point. At August 6, 2025 was when this mad lad named DMCA guy dropped this game called Fish. Now at first it was actually pretty niche until it gained sudden popularity due to TikTok. Now this game is basically like a platformer, a run and gun of sorts. And this game also has, well, if you would consider it lore. You are a fish with a gun. You must destroy everything in your path. Will you be able to survive only being an armed fish, or just be flapping around like a normal fish? This is just peak writing over here. Man, whoever wrote this, man, they need a Grammy. But alongside that, now that we have all the information for this fuck ass game, let's jump into this lobotomy fest of the game, shall we? Our orange fish fellow with its gun casually just standing on top of a tower while it's raining. Oddly dramatic, but we start, which takes us to the tutorial. And basically, the tutorial here is teaching us the basic mechanics. How to shoot, how to double jump, how to swap between weapons, and most importantly, our special gauge and our HP bar, which is actually our cards. Now, moving on, we get sent into the first level. Now, this level is called Fluoroden, and our enemies seem to be having watermelon with teeth and flowers that can fly with eyes. This kind of reminds me of those Dreamcore type of shit. But after dealing with the wave of enemies, we actually unlock our first other weapon aside from our pistol, the shotgun. The shotgun is basically a powerful weapon that can basically one-shot most enemies if you're up close. Now, after going around the Fluoroden, absolutely terrorizing these strange beings, we finally get into an area that seems to be covered with fog. Going down deeper, we finally get introduced to our first boss. The boss's name is called Smrog, a plant fellow with a blunt. Yes, literally. Now, this funky guy's ability is that he can turn his face into a machine gun, and he can also summon spikes from the ground. And also, he has these little weird fog fellas that you may probably not see due to the filter. Now, of course, after absolutely getting killed on my first turn, I decide to lock the fuck in. After defeating Smrog, we get ranked based on the amount of kills, the amount of time we spend, and we also get money from this, which actually moving on to the next level called Spookland. Now, Spookland is basically a haunted house-esque theme level with, of course, a graveyard, because, you know, what haunted house doesn't have a graveyard, with multiple new enemies. We have gravestones with hands, we have pumpkins who can fly and have, like, really long legs, and we also have the Grim Reapers that you guys will be seeing later. We also obtained one of the other newer weapons called the Flamethrower, and basically by using the Flamethrower, you're allowed to set your enemies on fire, which is actually pretty good, although it does have a decently short range. And later on, moving ahead, once you enter into the Haunted Mouse, you also obtain another weapon called the Sword. And the Sword is, well, a sword, what you expect. Also, there's another enemy where this is the eyeball fellow with hands, and they chase you down, but you know, yabba dabba dooba. Skip ahead from that, and we finally get outside to the roof. Mowing down a couple of enemies, we finally introduced to our second boss, Tuna. Now, just like the first one, I died on my first attempt, but however, beat it on my second attempt. So I'm just going to be playing the V2 encounter music. It just really reminds me of this. After defeating Tuna, this figure named Sweeper pulls up and basically just tells us, oh shoot, you beat that Tuna guy, congratulations, but however, you're in my way of taking over the world, so I gotta stop you. Moving on forward, we get to the second act of Spookland, and actually we get a store, which, you know, you can just get some stuff, some cool little gadgets. So what I got is that I decided to get the minigun and the shield, because you can parry, baby. After buying the two items, we went to our way and continued massacring our line of enemies until we actually managed to get into a train. Now, this train seems normal, but you guys keep forgetting, we are in Spookland, so the train is actually an evil and sentient train, which on the topic of trains, that literally just transitions us to our next and final boss of this demo, the fucking haunted train, which actually reminded me about that one train boss from Cuphead. If anybody can tell me what the name was, please tell me. But their abilities are basically that they can shoot bullets using their hands, and they can shoot a really fat bullet. They can also use ghosts to block your screen. Now, pretty simple, right? Of course, it won't be a GrumpyJoel video if I end up dying somehow, some way, but like Maharaga, I adapted, turned that wheel, and beated the shit out of this boss, which thus finally puts an end to the fish demo. You know, out of all the questionable things I did, lose my meat, somehow get caught dating a sunflower, that's still AI, I do not believe anybody who actually said that. You know, I really crave for some fish right now. Fish! Oh hey, buddy. You didn't hear that, did you? Oh. Hey bro, I'm just kidding.